My name is Sarah Jenkins. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a project manager for a mid-sized tech company. My entire career is built on anticipating problems, managing resources, and making sure everything runs according to plan. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the call I received while recovering from an emergency appendectomy, still hazy from the anesthesia, hooked up to IVs in a sterile hospital room. My phone, lying on the bedside table, buzzed with my mother's name. I fumbled for it, a dull ache throbbing in my abdomen. "Hi, Mom," I rasped, my throat dry. Her voice was too bright, too cheerful for the circumstances. "Sarah, darling. So glad you're awake. Listen, about the wedding." My stomach clenched, not from the surgery, but from a sudden, cold dread. "We decided to cancel it for you. It's just too much right now, with everything." The words hit me like a physical blow. Cancel my wedding? Mark and I had spent a year planning, saving, dreaming. "What do you mean, cancel it?" I managed, my voice thin. "All the deposits are paid. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, everything." My mother sighed, a sound I knew well, a prelude to deflection. "Well, Chloe needed the funds, sweetheart. She's been having such a hard time, you know. And frankly, with you in the hospital, it just seemed like the sensible thing to do. We've given everything to her. It's done." A wave of nausea, far worse than anything the surgery had caused, washed over me. My wedding, gone. The future I'd meticulously planned, ripped away. And the reason? My sister, Chloe. My parents had always prioritized her, always swooped in to save her from every self-inflicted crisis, but this was a new low. I couldn't speak, couldn't even form a coherent thought beyond the ringing betrayal in my ears. They thought they'd broken me, left me helpless and dependent. They were wrong. They had only shown me, with brutal clarity, who they truly were, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. To understand the depth of that betrayal, you need to know about my family. My parents, Eleanor and Richard, always prided themselves on being supportive, but that support was never evenly distributed. Chloe, my younger sister by 4 years, was their perpetual project. From failed art careers to bad relationships to mounting credit card debt, Chloe always had a crisis that required immediate, substantial intervention. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one. The one who got good grades, worked through college, paid her own way, and never asked for anything. I didn't need saving, so I rarely got attention. Mark, my fiancé, was everything my parents didn't expect from me. He was kind, stable, a software engineer with a quiet confidence. They found him a bit boring, certainly not the flashy type Chloe always seemed to attract and then inevitably disappoint. When Mark proposed last year, on a hike we loved, with a simple, beautiful ring, I was ecstatic. My parents, however, were lukewarm. They offered to help with the wedding expenses, a generous gesture I genuinely appreciated. We were planning a modest affair, about 80 guests, at a beautiful botanical garden venue outside of Philadelphia, where we lived. We'd put down substantial deposits, and my parents had promised to cover the remaining 40% of the costs, which was a significant sum, about $15,000. They'd even mentioned helping with a down payment on a house, something they'd always hinted at when I settled down. It felt like, for once, I was finally getting some of the parental support Chloe always received. The week before my appendicitis hit, Chloe had called my mother in hysterics. Her latest venture, an online boutique selling artisanal candles, had flopped spectacularly, leaving her with a mountain of debt and an eviction notice. My mother, of course, went into full rescue mode. I remember rolling my eyes when Mom called me, detailing Chloe's woes. "She just needs a little boost, Sarah," she'd said. "She's so fragile." I'd offered some practical advice, budgeting, looking for a steady job, but my parents always preferred to throw money at Chloe's problems rather than let her face consequences. I thought that was the worst of it. It wasn't. 2 days after my surgery, still reeling from my mother's call, Mark arrived at the hospital, his face a mask of concern. He'd already spoken to my parents. They really did it, didn't they? I whispered, tears finally stinging my eyes. He sat on the edge of my bed, taking my hand. Yeah, Sarah. They called the venue yesterday. Told them you were indefinitely indisposed and wanted to cancel everything. They even tried to get the deposits back, but the contracts are clear. Most of it is non-refundable at this stage. My heart sank further. Thousands of dollars, just gone. And the house down payment? I asked, a fresh wave of dread washing over me. The one they said they'd help us with? Mark squeezed my hand. They told me they've reallocated those funds to help Chloe get back on her feet. Said she needed it more urgently. The sheer audacity of it left me speechless. Not only had they sabotaged my wedding, they'd stripped away a financial promise that represented our future, all while I was literally recovering from surgery. When I was discharged a few days later, still sore but fueled by a simmering rage, Mark drove me straight to my parents' house. I needed answers, face to face. My mother opened the door, her smile brittle. Sarah, darling. You're home. We were so worried. My father, Richard, stood behind her, avoiding my gaze. Chloe was nowhere in sight. Mom, Dad, what you did was unforgivable, I stated, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Canceling my wedding, taking the money you promised us for a down payment, and giving it all to Chloe? While I was in the hospital? My mother wrung her hands. Now, Sarah, don't be dramatic. Chloe really needed it. She was practically homeless. And you were in the hospital, you couldn't have handled wedding plans anyway. We just took care of it. My father finally spoke, his voice gruff. It's family money, Sarah. We can do what we want with it. Chloe's our daughter too, and she's struggling. You're always so capable. We knew you'd understand. Capable doesn't mean I don't deserve support, Dad, I shot back, my voice rising. Capable doesn't mean you get to destroy my wedding and my future because Chloe made another bad decision. I noticed a small, velvet box on the mantelpiece, usually kept hidden away. It was the antique locket, a family heirloom that had been passed down through generations of women, always intended for the eldest daughter on her wedding day. My mother had promised it to me years ago, something old for my special day. It wasn't there anymore. Where's the locket? I asked, my gaze fixed on the empty spot. My mother shifted uncomfortably. Oh, that? Chloe loved it so much. We thought it might cheer her up. It's just a trinket, Sarah. It wasn't just a trinket. It was a symbol, and its absence solidified everything. They hadn't just taken money, they'd stripped away every symbol of my place in the family, every promise, every piece of my future. Mark, who had been quietly standing beside me, stepped forward. Eleanor, Richard, we had contracts with the vendors. Sarah's name is on those. The deposits are lost, but there are still cancellation fees. We're on the hook for those now, too, because of your actions. My parents looked genuinely surprised by this. Cancellation fees, my mother gasped. Well, you should have read the fine print. That night, Mark and I sat down with our wedding planner, a kind woman named Brenda who was mortified by the situation. She confirmed the non-refundable deposits and the additional cancellation penalties. The total loss was staggering, nearly $18,000. Brenda also mentioned that my mother had been quite insistent that I was incapable of making decisions, and had signed a waiver on my behalf, claiming she had power of attorney, which she absolutely did not. That detail mattered later. We spent the next few days contacting every vendor, explaining the bizarre situation, trying to salvage what we could. Some were understanding, others less so. The emotional toll was immense. Chloe, meanwhile, was oblivious, or pretended to be. I saw a post on her social media, a picture of her beaming, holding the antique locket, announcing she was starting a new chapter with her family's incredible support. The caption mentioned a new apartment and a business incubation fund. The rage that had been simmering finally boiled over. This wasn't just about money, it was about a pattern of abuse and favoritism that had finally reached a breaking point. I realized then what was truly happening. My parents didn't see me as an adult with my own life. They saw me as an extension of their family unit, one they could manipulate and sacrifice for Chloe's endless needs. My independence, my plans, my happiness, were all secondary to Chloe's comfort. They wanted me to be the reliable, compliant daughter who would always step aside. But I wasn't that person anymore. The woman who had planned a wedding, managed complex projects at work, and navigated life's challenges wasn't going to let herself be erased. I started gathering documentation. Emails from vendors, copies of our wedding contracts, the initial bank transfer receipts for the deposits, even screenshots of Chloe's social media post with the locket. Mark suggested we talk to a lawyer, not necessarily to sue my parents. The thought was still too painful, but to understand our options, especially regarding the cancellation fees and the fraudulent claim of power of attorney. We found a family law attorney, Ms. Davies, who listened patiently. She confirmed that my mother's actions regarding the wedding contracts were legally questionable, potentially even fraudulent. She advised sending a formal letter, outlining the financial damages and the legal implications of their actions, specifically the misrepresentation of authority. It was a difficult decision, but I knew I couldn't just let this go. Not anymore. The letter, drafted by Ms. Davies, was sent certified mail. It detailed the nearly $18,000 in lost deposits and cancellation fees, the emotional distress, and the misrepresentation regarding my mother's authority. It also mentioned the promised house down payment, framing it as a breach of a verbal agreement that had led to my financial detriment. It wasn't a lawsuit, not yet, but it made it clear I was serious. The phone call from my mother came 2 days later, her voice laced with outrage. "Sarah, what is this? A lawyer? Are you trying to destroy your family? We just tried to help Chloe." My father got on the line, his tone icy. "We're not giving you a cent, Sarah. You're being greedy. Chloe needs that money." "No, Dad," I said, my voice firm, "you destroyed my wedding. You stole my future. And you lied to vendors, claiming you had legal authority you didn't possess. This isn't about greed, it's about accountability. You owe Mark and me for the damages you caused." I then added, "And the locket. I want the locket back. It was promised to me." There was a stunned silence. They hadn't expected me to fight back, especially not with legal backing. The confrontation didn't end with them immediately writing a check. It was a prolonged, painful battle. My parents refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing, doubling down on Chloe's needs. But the threat of legal action, specifically regarding the fraudulent waiver, was a heavy one. Ms. Davies sent a follow-up letter, detailing the specific statute my mother had violated. Slowly, grudgingly, they started to crack. They didn't pay the full $18,000, but after weeks of tense negotiations through Ms. Davies, they agreed to cover the cancellation fees, about $6,000, and return the locket. They also made it clear that any future financial support or inheritance from them was now solely for Chloe. I accepted the terms. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about drawing a line. The locket arrived in a padded envelope, unceremoniously, a week later. It felt heavy in my hand, cooler than I remembered. Mark and I decided to have a small, intimate ceremony in our backyard with just a few close friends and family who truly supported us. We used the money we saved to put a down payment on a modest starter home, without any help from my parents. It was a struggle, but it felt earned. My relationship with my parents, and with Chloe, is irrevocably changed. I rarely speak to them, and when I do, it's superficial. The locket now sits in a small box in my dresser drawer. It's no longer a symbol of family tradition or a cherished heirloom. It's a reminder of what I lost, and what I gained, the strength to stand up for myself, even when it meant severing ties with the people who were supposed to protect me. I wear it sometimes, not for sentiment, but as a quiet testament to the person I became the day my parents canceled my wedding while I was in the hospital, and gave everything to my sister.